I'm Alan Rosenberg, National President of the Screen Actors Guild. I am honored to be here today during National Disability Employment Awareness Month to welcome you on behalf of the Tri-Union Performers with Disabilities Committee of Screen Actors Guild, the American Federation of Radio and Television Artists, and Actors Equity Association, as we formally announce the committee's newest initiative, IAMPWD. As you can tell from the video, IAMPWD stands for the Inclusion in the Arts and Media of People with Disabilities. And that is our goal for today, for tomorrow, and from this point forward until people with disabilities are no longer invisible in the media. Over the years, this country and our unions have faced and met head-on the challenges of discrimination, inequality, and exclusion. Due to the successes of the civil rights movement, the labor movement, and other grassroots organizations like those here today, women, racial and ethnic minorities, seniors, and our lesbian and gay brothers and sisters are realizing the promise of civil rights protections. Now they at least have a chance to become partners in the American dream. We all know that progress is limited, and these protections are always at risk and must always be monitored. The media are a powerful force in shaping public perception. Entertainment and news media serves as a gauge that tells us whether we are all living the American dream or only some of us, or in fact, whether we even exist. In the 1999 fall television season, 26 new shows were set to debut on the 4 major networks, and none of those shows featured minority characters in leading roles. Calling it a virtual whitewash, the NAACP's Kwesi Mfume said, "This glaring omission is an outrage and a shameful display by network executives who are either clueless, careless, or both." Mfume pulled together a broad and diverse coalition of major civil rights organizations and reminded us all that the 1934 Federal Communications Act states that the airways belong to the public. Mfume brought his coalition to hearings in Los Angeles, resulting in national headlines. Soon the networks had made unprecedented commitments to make diversity a primary principle of doing business. The networks went on to hire diversity officers to work with outside organizations and labor unions in meeting their new commitments. In keeping the networks accountable, this grand coalition of civil rights organizations issues annual report cards grading the networks on their progress. As I said before, some progress has been made, but only for some. When asked at a recent forum if people with disabilities were included in that network's diversity programs, a senior executive said that their definition of diversity included only women and ethnic minorities. We know that this thinking is pervasive, and that is why we're here today. For over 15 years, members of the Tri-Union Performers with Disabilities Committee have met producers at the bargaining table to formally negotiate for accessible and inclusive working conditions. After numerous forums, panel discussions, showcases, and events meant to highlight the wealth of talent within the community, performers and broadcasters with disabilities are still nearly invisible in the media. We now say enough. As we regularly hear these days from our 2 national political campaigns, it's time for a change. Change is coming. Well, the time for change is now. Discrimination has to be challenged loudly and with a global effort to educate the public to the lack of inclusion and universal access in the entertainment industry. It is a priority for the Screen Actors Guild. Just ask Doug Allen, our National Executive Director, or Rebecca Yee, National Executive Director of the Affirmative Action and Diversity Department of SAG, or ask our Secretary-Treasurer, Connie Stevens. It is a priority for AFTRA. Ask Ron Morgan, National Vice President and Los Angeles President, or Bill Butler, National Vice President and National Chair of EEO at AFTRA. It is a priority for Actors Equity. It is also a priority among our partners who are here with us today, the Media Access Office, Down Syndrome and Arts and Media, the Honorable Yvonne Burke in the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors, Phyllis Chang in the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing, City of Los Angeles' Department on Disability, the WGA Writers with Disabilities, Performing Arts Studio West, and Disability Rights Legal Center. Now I'd just like to talk about a little sort of personal awakening I had back in 2005 when we launched our Tri-Guild study on diversity. It's always been a source of dismay to me whenever you have to go out and try to convince people of the moral imperative to get involved in the fight for equal justice, equal rights, and inclusion. But not everybody sees things the same way I do, so sometimes you have to resort to appealing to somebody's pragmatism and talk about how things relate to them. You use arguments like, well, in a union and a democracy, at the end of the day, all for one and one fits all is what gets things done. But sometimes pragmatic people don't respond to that argument. Or use the argument that if you take these people's rights away or you limit their protections, then the next thing they'll do is come and take away your rights and your protections. But sometimes pragmatic people only see their own place in time. They don't look into the future, and sometimes they don't see themselves as part of a group that might be excluded. But in 2005, somebody said, and it was such a simple thought, but a revelation to me. It might have been you who said it.
If it's good, I'll take credit, you know.
Well, that every member of this union, every member of this city, every member of this state, this country, this planet, falls into one of two categories. We're all either disabled or we're potentially disabled. This initiative absolutely affects every single one of us. It cuts across racial lines, gender, economic status. It is truly an opportunity for us all to stand shoulder to shoulder. And there's nothing to stop us all from saying in one voice, IAMPWD. And it's a thrill to be here with all of you. The tri-union performers with disabilities in the IAMPWD campaign are wonderful examples of how three unions working together for justice for our members. And the member who has been leading the PWD committee for the last 20 years as the national chair is a terrific leader whose tremendous commitment and tenacity benefit all performers with disabilities and all performers in general. He is known to many as Dr. Albert Robbins on the hit television show CSI, Crime Scene Investigation. To his committee, he is affectionately called Uncle Dave. To me, he is a good friend, a true union leader, and an advocate for people with disabilities everywhere. His name is Robert David Hall.
Thank you. My wife's here, so thank you doubly. That's great. Thank you, President Rosenberg. Alan, I appreciate your words and your leadership, as well as the support of AFTRA's Roberta Reardon and Equity's Mark Zimmerman. I also want to acknowledge the leadership and vision of past Guild and union presidents, most notably William Schallert and Ed Asner of SAG, and John Conley from AFTRA and now Actors Equity. Also, Tom Miller and David Lotz from Equity have been great supporters. I have only been the national chair of PWD for about 8 years, but a member of the committee off and on for most of its 26-year history. There are too many people to name right now, but the work of Terry Susan Hartman, Alan Toy, Kitty Lunn, Michael Gogan, Henry Holden, Jerry Jewell, Chris Templeton, Bill Supernaw. There's so many others, and if I've forgotten your name, please bear with me. I am a proud member of all three unions that are represented here today. And as President Rosenberg mentioned, I'm fortunate to be a series regular on a hit TV show. CSI has given me tremendous opportunities and a platform to speak around the country about diversity and disability issues. The reason I care about these things is twofold and fairly simple: jobs and images. I realized early in my career that making it as an actor, a voiceover performer, a broadcaster, or a musician was not going to be easy. This is a competitive and at times brutal business. A foolish person told me I had some talent. I trained with a few good teachers, great teachers in fact. I took all the right classes, I joined a classical theater company, and I set out to pay my dues.